So I usually try to be contrarian, but I will go with the consensus that Patty was pretty good in this episode. But besides him and Alicent, there wasn't really all that much that stood out. Matt Smith was pretty good in several scenes where he was more laid back, he was more calm. Saw him grieving and just being a little bit more meditative. And that's about it. There really wasn't much here. Eve was pretty strong at the very beginning, and they did some playful things with the camera. But that scene didn't go on too long. Really, the main things that were strong were Patty and Alicent, and that's about it. It was just a lot of parts that dragged in this whole episode. It was very, very lethargic. And even though I do give them points for trying some things with the dialogue didn't improve, and there was just this one, and it was really insane, laugh out moment where someone actually said it. They actually said, "A Song of Ice and Fire." And I'm like, okay, we've maxed out that credit card too many times, so they need to stop doing that. Overall, it was good. It was above average. Dialogue was more or less okay. And again, within some particular scenes, there was a lot of good characterization, but yeah, this was pretty boring. I mean, this is technically the third setup episode. I thought this episode, I would have really bet money they're going to pump it up. They're going to do not maybe rings of power like a volcano or have things literally explode, but do something. And yes, the plot moved forward. They did remove certain players. I'm going to keep it non spoiler, so I won't reveal who died or who got killed, but it was fairly dramatic and it will have consequences, and yet it didn't seem to matter in the moment, which was shocking because Matt Smith, Daemon, did things in front of Otto Hightower, like literally in front of him, and Otto hates this person, and you think to yourself, Otto now has pretext to kill Matt Smith and take Matt Damon, throw him out a window, and he just sits down, and you're like, what? So there's just many things that just weren't adding up or didn't seem to go anywhere. But the plot did progress a little bit, but yeah, it seemed like a really big trip to nowhere. A few things of consequence did happen, but overall it was just like, huh. It's very, very ho hum. And I can't give away, but Patty's central performance was very touching and moving. So what happened with him I thought was very, very sad and very effective and very emotive. That part was very, very strong. But besides that, there's really not much to speak of that was really strong or durable. I did like the way Alicent in one of her scenes with Daemon and Rhaenyra was sort of parrying with them in terms of words and was very careful not to go too far, but being very assertive. I thought that was very balanced and very interesting. Unfortunately, too many other scenes were kind of either overly melodramatic, went too far one way, or they were so sedate that it was very, very boring. It's kind of sleep inducing. And the time jump really felt jarring. Just the characters look so differently, and their disposition seemed so radically different. It's just like, what? And it seems like now that Daemon and Rhaenyra, what they have together as a relationship, it's kind of open, but some, I remember some dialogue was like, no, it's not open. So that was very confusing. So all around, it was just basically very boring. But I do think the world building was still strong and moderately effective. And I do give the writers points for trying to do some things with the language that was playful and these double entendres. It just didn't work, or they were just too obvious. And it feels like I'm being partisan for Rings of Power. I'm not. I just think that Rings of Power ultimately had the right strategy. They did, quote unquote, the boring episodes early. Now we're getting the payoffs. Maybe it was a little too late, but there you go. Here it seems like we had like a setup, rising action, then calm things down. Okay, fine. And things are now being set up for more rising action, but nope. We're just doing more setups. And by now I'm just bored. Just bored out of my mind. The only person I'm really engaged with is Alicent. I'd feel sorry if she died. But most of the other characters I wouldn't care. I didn't care when somebody got killed. I didn't care when somebody died. just didn't register, and it didn't seem to have any consequences. So it's like it just feels like they're treating Daemon like Ramsay. Ramsay can just kill his own men, and Roose Bolton just doesn't do anything. But at least there, eventually Roose did do something, and here it just feels like he can just do whatever he wants. He can just there's really no limits to his impunity. So it's like, it just feels very boring. So it feels a little severe, but I'm gonna have to give this a 7.25. It probably is one of the weakest episodes. I know a lot of people loved it just because of Patty. That's fine. I don't mind sticking out from the crowd, but I don't know. It really feels in retrospect like these three episodes, a good editor could have just chopped it down to two good episodes, and that's it. Make of that what you will. It's not much to say. It's just a few cringe moments, not that many. A few good scenes, not that many. And it started off good, had a lot of promise with Eve, and then it just didn't go anywhere really. That's what we have with this latest episode of Hot D. I'd recommend seeing it, but don't be surprised if you're just going to be, after a while, getting very drowsy. I certainly did. To be perfectly honest, I was just very, very drowsy.